Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ball is Round. I'm Hady Raphael, and tonight on the show, CF Montreal takes all 3 points in Miami, Courtois' early team identity, and the Canadian women's national team falls in penalties against the US in the W Gold Cup semifinals. That and a lot more on episode 170 of The Ball is Round. What a day of soccer today. What a wonderful and amazing day. I'm Hady Raphael, joined by my two friends and co-hosts, Eve Powell and Elias Gregoriadis. Eve, how are you today?
I am doing all right, despite the fact that I am, as always, awash with the Sunday scaries. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm happy. Marseille won. Montreal won. Everything's going really well. So I'm very, very happy. Elias, what's going on?
I was about an inch of rain away. No, a millimeter of rain away from a perfect soccer weekend. But
What
we'll get to that. It turned into a water polo game. That's what happened. We'll get into that later. But yeah, Barcelona won, Femini won 7-1, Montreal won, so close to a perfect soccer weekend.
Exactly. Let's talk about the game, the CF Montreal game, one of the games, because we do have also a semifinal of the W Gold Cup that we'll talk about right after. But let's talk about CF Montreal visiting Miami, going there under the Florida sun to try to beat a team that's been really hauled by everyone, like being the best team in MLS right now. And Montreal was able to do so by winning 3-2. The game just finished. We were at the post-game presser, Elias and I, which was very, very interesting, and we'll talk about that a bit later. So for that game, we were all wondering what is Laurent Courtois going to do, and we thought that maybe he would change things or not, and he didn't. So let's take a look at the starting 11 that Laurent Courtois chose for that very important game. So in goal, we had Jonathan Sirois. In defense, we had Gabriel Corbo play either as a right center back with the injury of George Campbell. In the middle, Joel Waterman. On the left, Fernando Alvarez as a left center back. As a double pivot, we had Samuel Piet and Mathieu Chouanière. And then as wingbacks, we had Ariel Lassiter on the left, Rouen on the right. The two, I don't like to call them number 10s, but the two offensive midfielders were Bryce Duke and Jules-Anthony Vincent, who gets the nod after his great performance last time around. And up front, Matthias Kokaro holds his place as the first team striker. When you looked at that starting 11, guys, were you surprised? What were your impressions? Let's start with you, Eve.
I really wasn't surprised at all, to be honest with you. Obviously, there was going to be a hole to fill after Opoku's injury last week. And of course, Jules-Anthony Vincent, when he subbed in for the injured Opoku, he seized his opportunity last week at Dallas with his first goal of the season. So I can understand completely why he was rewarded with the start for this match. I did think that the choice to put Alvarez in at the left or right center back position was a very bold choice from Courtois, given he's very, very inexperienced overall in MLS in particular. And of course, the firepower that Miami has available to them, it was going to be probably the biggest test of his career, if, not maybe one of the U20 games that Colombia has played.
Yeah, true, but like he didn't have a lot of choice, right? With Campbell
Totally.
injured, Sosa just coming back from a knock, and Torkelson not yet, training like at full
We don't know where
capacity.
he is, yeah.
And we don't know where he is. So and Jaban cannot play on the left. So you could have played Jaban on the right and Corbo on the left, maybe, but you know, you have two rookies in a way. So, you know, he chose someone else that maybe has a brighter future. I don't know. But
well, I guess like whoever was chosen, regardless, it was going to be considered a bold choice because all of the options were players who either have not had a lot of minutes in their time with Montreal or just don't have the experience, period. So regardless of who it was going to feel like a bold choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless Sosa, like who does at least have minutes in Bologna, might have been. But of course, we know he's probably not fit for a full 90 minutes yet.
Yeah, exactly. Elias, when you looked at that starting 11, were you expecting like tactical changes? I thought that we would have another, you know, number 6 instead of having 2 offensive midfielders, maybe just 1 offensive midfielder. I thought that maybe he would do that because of the firepower of the opponent, but he didn't. He stuck to his guns. He kept the same tactical formation that he's had since the beginning of the season. Did you think that that would be an option, or were you sure that he was going to keep the same formation?
I mean, you can never be sure, right? But I was definitely not surprised. You know, when I saw them playing the same way. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know. And at this point now, with 3 games left in the road trip, they're playing with house money. It doesn't matter what they do because this road trip is a success, is a massive success. We were talking about like 4 points is a good haul, and they've already passed that with 3 games left to go. So I think, honestly, I wasn't surprised. And honestly, given the fact that they don't have Champions Cup, and they don't have midweek games to worry about, I wouldn't be surprised if they had, again, very similar. If they had like maybe at least 9 of the same players starting again against Chicago. You know, why not?
Yeah. I don't know. I always feel that you know, it depends on the coach, right? Sometimes the coach is going to opt for you know, the same formation to make sure that, you know, the automation gets better, like in a way where you get used to play with certain people at certain positions, and sometimes they're going to try to really change a few things to make sure that they can adapt to the opponent when the opponent poses a lot of threats. So I'm always on the fence on which option to choose. So it was, I think, very interesting. But you're right, Elias. So I feel that he will keep that formation, whatever is going to happen, whatever the opponent. It seems that he's going to be this type of coach, and why not? Why not? We do have quite a few people saying hi. Jean-François Côté, Wellington, Patrick, Roberto. So hi to everyone. We do have a few questions already. So we will answer them, of course, in due time.
Like kind of as they come up.
As they come up, exactly, during our show. That's for sure. So even if you asked a question maybe half an hour ago, maybe we'll answer it later. So don't worry about that. So let's start with the way CF Montreal started the game, and that was one of your questions, Elias, to Laurent Courtois. How come they start the games in tank mode in a certain way? Really, it's so impressive, the start of the games every time CF Montreal goes, you know, and starts everything. So what do you think about this way of approaching the game and this way of starting the game?
Look, if it, again, you know, I'm going to reiterate my point from earlier. If it ain't broke, don't fix. Like, if this is the way that this team is going to be operating away from home, then hi, Ali. If this is the way that, you know, they're going to be operating away from home, then, you know, go for it. You know, every team finds success away from home differently. You know, whether you hunker down, whether you go for the gun, you shoot right away. They are operating like this because, again, this is another team that, you know, kind of showing the Champions League hangover that we saw against Orlando. They did come out very sluggish. If that is your identity, I'm happy to see it consistently happening. Now, you know, the second half of the first half, I'd like to see better, but the opening 15 minutes for every single game has been excellent for all 3. So go for it.
Exactly. Yves, how can you explain, and we're doing it feels that we're doing the second subject before starting the first one, but by talking about the team identity of Courtois. The second half, how do you explain the fact that we dropped deep in the second half and we tried to, we're just a low block, trying to counter, but in a way also giving up on possession? How do you feel about that with your pessimistic nature?
Obviously it's not for the faint of heart. I think it's very much like a road game mentality. I don't expect that's how Montreal is going to play no matter what the scoreline is when they're at home. I think this is largely I hope this is largely driven by the circumstances of this long road trip that they have on their hands, and that it's a pragmatic approach. Obviously, still early in the season, maybe not everybody is like 100% all the way there, like ready to, bust a gut, I guess, for a full 90 minutes. Therefore, they have to be able to manage energy, to manage just the tempo of the match and all that, especially when they find themselves in a winning position as they did tonight. Especially, as we just said, I think a couple of times, and we're probably going to say it a few more times, knowing how powerful Miami can be, you definitely don't want to overcommit going forward if you have something worth protecting. When you're on the road, when you're at their house, and of course you have, their crowd behind them, getting on the ref's case, amping up their players, so on and so forth. But just based on kind of everything that Laurent Courtois has said so far, I do expect like they're going to have, regardless, a much more exciting, much more start of the match approach when they do finally get to play at home.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting, I think, to see this team grow. Let's talk about the game. So first of all, you did talk about Alvarez being chosen as in the starting 11, Yves. But let's talk about the whole defensive unit. So Waterman in the middle, on the right you had Gabriele Corbo, on the left you had Fernando Alvarez. Give me your notes regarding that defense, like positive notes, negative notes. What did you feel about that new formed center back, three center back line?
So definitely, we saw, I think, again, their commitment to playing a really tight offside line, which worked in their favor a couple of times for sure in the first half. And that seems to be part of the identity that Laurent Courtois is trying to instill. We also saw some of the glorious risky soccer that nearly cost Montreal when, of course, Jonathan Serrois went to play short and immediately turned the ball over to an onrushing Miami attacker. But thankfully, they came out no worse for wear. Overall, like, for how young and how, like I said, I expect this is probably the biggest opposition of his career. I didn't think that Alvarez looked terribly out of place. Obviously, I'm not talking about his offensive contributions because I'm sure we'll talk about those separately. But defensively speaking, I truly didn't think he looked out of place. He had a lot of pace to contend with guys like Campagna, Robbie Taylor. There were a couple of times, though, that Robbie Taylor did slip in and, kind of drift in invisibly between the two goalkeepers, which was a little bit unnerving, or not goalkeepers, sorry, the two defenders, which was definitely a little bit unnerving in that first half. However, it didn't seem like it was necessarily an issue on the Montreal end. I think it was almost just a matter of skill on the offensive player end.
Now, how do you explain, Elias, the fact that CF Montreal conceded 2 goals and seemed a bit lost on the defensive end quite a few times? Because yes, they only conceded 2 goals, but they could have conceded a lot more. Yves talked about the offside trap that the defense is trying, but yeah, a couple of times we saw the assistant referee raise their flag, but it wasn't offside. So if the goal had gone in, that would have been reviewed, and it could have been a whole different story. And we saw a Robert Taylor that had quite a few chances and came very, very close to scoring goals. How do you explain that? Is it because it's a newly formed defense, or is it because of the quality of Inter Miami? And what if Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez were starters, do you think that the score would have been different?
Obviously not. I mean, when they feel like it, they can score 5, right? They showed it. But, you know, I'm going to be like Eve here and not indulge hypotheticals because that way lies madness. We'll see. We'll see on May 11th if that
You're my
hypothesis is
favorite,
true.
Elias.
But you know, from a different aspect, right? This was the most questions that backline had been asked so far, right? Against Dallas, they managed the game incredibly well, and against Orlando, the midfield was putting in a lot of work and kind of just ushering everything to the side, and all the offense was through crosses. Today, though, you know, you could tell this was the first time that Simon Piet and Mathieu Choinière were properly outnumbered.
Yeah.
They were like up until the point where Mathieu Choinière, until Victor Wanyama replaced Samuel Piet.
Especially in the second half, right? In the first half,
Exactly.
it didn't show that much.
Yeah. Towards the end of the game, you know, it feels almost like Montreal actually managed, like especially in the after Jordi Alba's goal, it feels like almost they managed it better than before
Yeah.
Jordi Alba's goal.
I agree.
Very much.
For some
Yeah.
reason, I think that, you know, they started, you know, hitting back on the counter. They started playing out from the back a little bit more, and you know that release of pressure kind of, you know, you let the defense breathe, you let them get their shape back, and then all of a sudden, you know, you win the ball much easier. So, you know, my bigger concern was, like you said, right, in the between the, like, say the 50th and the 70th minute, when all Montreal did was hunker down for dear life and hope, and you know they were getting exposed, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. If you're just having offense versus defense training session, gaps are going to form. Against Dallas and against Orlando, they were much more open. They were playing out of the back. They were trying to hit back on the counter, and the other teams couldn't afford to send everybody forward. The second they started doing that again in the final stages of the game, all of a sudden, you know, magically, Miami couldn't send 8 people forward and you know, send a barrage. So I think that's, you know, yes, their block is very compact and it's super well organized. And that's good in a pinch, but again, this is very clear that, you know, with the quality in this league right now, you can't expect to have 60 minutes in a low block. There's a reason why the Nashville model has started to kind of fall off now. That's not a viable strategy.
Never count Nashville out. Never count
Well,
Nashville out.
even they had to kind of adapt or die, right? And
Yeah,
you saw it against
true.
Miami in that Champions Cup game, right? They didn't play, they didn't park the bus anymore, even without Hani Mukhtar. So everyone is understanding that you can't just, you know, defend for 60 minutes or 70 minutes and hope for the best.
Yeah, interesting. I don't think that we were trying to do that. We were just being compact and really trying to build off that. We're going to talk about it a bit later when we talk about the identity. But let's talk. I just had one thing on one comment on the defense. I thought that at times, yes, the midfield, I completely agree with you. The midfield was sometimes you know, lost and were overpowered in a way. But I feel also that the backline at times that didn't really know where everybody was standing, so the positioning was a bit off. A few times we saw some attackers that were completely free, like on that Campagna goal. You know, nobody's on him. Like you have two defenders that were in front of him, but nobody's on him, and Joseph Martinez, like,
Yeah. It's not a great match.
Exactly.
No.
Didn't even try to win the ball, which for me is a bit concerning. Yes, it's on a free kick, but still, I don't know. I feel that that there was something missing defensively, but it's kind of completely normal because it's a newly formed defense. So I'm not gonna say that, you know, we're doomed or anything. But let's talk about the offensive prowess of Fernando Alvarez, because he did miss a very, very big chance around the, I think, 13th minute or something like that. Not the 13th, a bit before maybe. And then maybe few minutes later, he scores that header. we've been wanting a central defender that scores goals since Rudy Camacho left.
Yeah.
And have we found him, Elias? Have we found that player that can be, even if with two, I think two very, very, very big chances.
Yes.
I think you can already say that he's very at ease in the box on free kicks, on corners, and everything, and you can see in his movement, the way he takes the ball, and everything. So, what do you think, Elias?
We saw also on the second goal that these set pieces were delivered very well. The timing is very good, but I feel like this game was more an indictment of Inter Miami being terrible at defending set pieces than Montreal being proficient at them. That's not to take away from the quality of the goal and the quality of the delivery. Everything there, you still have to have a certain amount of quality to score them. But the marking was trash.
Yeah, it was.
The marking was horrific, right? So it was more just, Montreal does have to kind of develop this sense of if you will give it to me, I will take it. Because Miami is not the only team in MLS that sucks at defending set pieces, right? Yeah. So I'm happy to see this trend. Whereas, other seasons you go up against a team that sucks at set pieces and Montreal still won't score, almost as if like they don't want to score from set pieces. So this game was maybe a nice, willing show of willingness to take advantage of those lapses in concentration. Because let's face it, it was 2 goals. It could have been 3. From set piece situations. So I think that, Miami was really bad at defending them, but it was nice to see that Montreal actually took advantage for once.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, go ahead, Eve. You had something to add.
I just wanted to say I really loved the delivery of Ruan on the corner. Loved. Maybe we finally have someone who can take a decent corner kick, says Chan. I'm afraid to get my hopes up. I really am, but I am willing to espouse the comment of Wellington, who says Ruan is a real deal, excellent acquisition, value to the team, 120% on that one. I am afraid to get excited though about him actually being the corner kick taker, but I thought that was such like a spicy delivery. It was like pinpoint perfect for Alvarez.
Yeah, and not only Juan, Ariel Lassiter is taking some corners too, and they're very good too. So, and we saw also a bit later, and we're going to talk about that a bit later. You know what? Let's do the transition to the midfield. You talked a bit about it, Elias, the fact that Piet and Chouanière had a bit of trouble, especially in the second half. In the first half, I thought that they were very good, winning the ball quite a few times. With Chouanière being very, very disciplined in that midfield, we tend to see Mathieu Chouanière as being that box to box that's a bit everywhere. This year, he has a more precise role in a certain way, winning the ball, just playing very simple, not really going for the goal, for the assists like he had before, which is, I think, very interesting. But also, talking about set pieces, he's the one that crosses on the free kick for Matias Kokaro for the third goal, and what a good free kick! That was a wonderful free kick too. So we're starting to have quite a few options taking free kicks or corners or set pieces. Juan, or Lassiter, Mathieu Chouanière. Are we finally starting to see something in set pieces that we didn't see before?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, especially the fact that they went with Mathieu Chouanière on an in-swinger from that angle makes it that much more difficult. Like the degree of difficulty there is very high. Where if you have like an outswing, like a left footer from there, there's a lot of ways that even if you hit it, you can still create some danger. If it's not perfect from a righty from there, scoring to the goalie or like a goal kick. So the fact that he put it on a platter for Kokoro like that was very nice to see from that far out too. So, another thing, I think that Mathieu Chouanière, the reason that his role is a lot more defined as a bit more reserved box to box is the fact that there's finally people who would score on the team. There's an offensive threat. He doesn't have to drive the ball forward and create chances and then almost like grab before by the scruff of the neck and force him to score the goal. So I think that, he can enjoy now, Laurent Courtois said it in the post-game presser, Samuel Piet said it as well, they can manage the game, right? Him and Piet managed that first hour to a varying degree. well, especially in that opening phase. They managed it extremely well. They controlled the tempo. They bent Miami to their will. I think we can hope to, as this team gets better at what they're doing, I'd love to see that even more, because if there's one player in MLS and on this team that could bend other people to their will and bend the tempo of the game to as well, as Victor Wanyama. So if you include Victor Wanyama in this now, then they can control, especially at home, they can control the tempo of the game for the entire 90 minutes if they want to, if they're playing like this.
Interesting. So you would put Wanyama for...
We'll see in a month when they have their first home game.
You're the one calling for him to be in the starting 11, so someone has to go off.
I think at home, when they have the majority of the ball and they don't have to adapt as much to the opposition and the opposing fans and just the atmosphere, I think that Victor Wanyama will become all the more important. And I think that is probably a conversation that Honko Thwa and Victor Wanyama had, where they need the energy right now in the beginning of the game or in the meat of the game. And I think that a game like this, where they were already outnumbered, Victor Wanyama would have just gotten swallowed whole. And it would remind me almost of like Atiba Hutchinson at the World Cup, where he's just like, yes, he's good, but not at this. And, he showed it when he came on for Piet, and he just calmed everything down, because that's what you needed at that point, because there wasn't as much running to be done. It was just kind of just managing. So at home, when you have 55, 60% of the ball, he's going to be unreal again.
Yeah, interesting. We have a comment regarding that midfield from Wellington that says Samuel Piet should be playing only half time. After 60 minutes, he's very exhausted. What do you think about that, Eve? Yeah, let's start with Eve on that, and then you can rebound, Elias.
Obviously it's very early in the season, so I'm not terribly surprised that like there are players who maybe aren't there 100% stamina wise, and we know that this game was a particularly taxing game. I think on the midfield, probably more than any other facet of the team. So I don't necessarily want to judge it based on this game, because I think he has been there for like the vast majority of the two earlier games this season. But I do kind of like the idea of a Victor Wanyama and Sam Piet tandem, where you get to kind of benefit from both of them at their most adept and most fit, in that they, one subs out for the other. I do see a lot of benefit in that for the team, particularly if they do find themselves in need of preserving a win, and they're not going to try and throw the kitchen sink at, going to get a result. That could be a huge benefit. But I do still think he has it in him. And like, honestly, for your captain to lie down behind the wall on a free kick, I think that says a lot about his what he brings to this team, not just in running around, because obviously that's like the least desired position when a free kick is being taken. But there he was, literally laying his body on the line for the team. So I'm not willing to say that Sam Piet doesn't have 90 minutes in his legs at this point.
Yeah, I don't agree with this either. I think he was, in the first two games, he was phenomenal. So, he was very, very good. And I think man of the match, in my opinion, I think it was in Dallas where he was very, very good. So I don't know. I don't think I think in this game, he's the one that went and talked to Laurent Courtois saying, you know what, I'm exhausted, just sub me. And this is what you expect from a captain. This is what you expect from someone leading the team, showing the example, showing that it's not about me, it's about us. And also, whenever he needs to do the dirty work, he does it, which I really love from Samuel Piet. But what do you think? Do you have any other opinions on this, Elias?
Yeah, I just think that like nobody except maybe Metzer Choinière could have run the way Piet ran for 90 minutes. It's just, I agree with Wellington in the fact that, after 60 minutes he was exhausted, but that's just because he did so much work that like you did a good shift and now you get a breather. That's, I don't think it's a criticism of him. I just think that, did his job.
Yeah, exactly. He did his job and he knew when to say stop. which is,
Mhm.
I think,
Yeah.
very, very commendable. Moving on with going up, we talked about the wingbacks a bit. Let's talk a bit about them, a bit more about them. I thought that we would see Juan and Edwards as the starting wingbacks,
Yeah.
but it feels that we see Lassiter a bit more. Um, and you know what? I'm all for that because Lassiter has been very exciting with CF Montreal. Yes, the first game he was a bit so, but in Dallas and tonight, I feel that he was very good. He was very disciplined defensively also today. Uh, are you on board with those two wingbacks, Eve?
For now, totally. I'm sure we're going to talk about Raheem Edwards' sub performance because that was a masterclass in game management from him, I think, when he did enter the match later on. But overall, yeah, I love what Ariel Lassiter can bring, particularly because he does have experience playing up front as well. So his ability to really like get in and contribute to the attack and kind of add in to, whether it's the two strikers or the three strikers, whatever it might be, or sorry, the one striker, the two strikers, whatever it might be in Courtois' match plan of the day. I think that's really nice to start a game off with, for sure. That being said, I loved what Raheem Edwards gave today when he came in. And I think there are definitely going to be matches that are better suited to his skill set. And I truly loved how he wore that clock down, like chipped away at it little by little by little. But yeah, Ariel Lassiter's work rate, there is nothing that can be said against it.
I completely agree, and we did talk a lot about Juan, so we won't go at this again. But we do have an interesting comment again from Wellington saying Lassi Lapalainen has to work very hard this season to expect having playing time.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about Dudy signing a professional contract, and he was very good in preseason too. From the small samples that we were able to watch. And what we've been able to watch also during training. So do we have more than enough players on the wings, or do you still think that we're missing someone, Elias?
Oh, in terms of flank players, but also players who can play on the flank, like in a pinch.
Yeah.
You don't need any more. You've done your job.
No.
We were begging for fullbacks. We have fullbacks. Mission accomplished.
Fullbacks to spare.
Exactly. Now you focus on other stuff, because even if you're not.
What's other stuff? What other stuff?
I don't know. Ask Olivier Renard, right? Ask Olivier Renard what's next on his shopping list. But you have Grayson Duty, and even if you're not super comfortable with Grayson Duty at an MLS level yet, Lassi Lapalainen has proven that he's more than capable of being at least a very attacking wingback. And you're gonna put him on his strong foot. You can put Grayson Duty in Champions League games to kind of see what his level is at, but your flanks are completely covered at this point. You don't need. We finally can, assuming everyone stays healthy, we could finally be like, oh my god, we have one thing to not complain about. It's great.
Yeah, and Canadian Championship. Yeah, I think you meant not Champions League, but yeah.
Is it Canadian Champions League?
No, you said Champions League.
Oh, I thought you said
okay, maybe. It's not a problem. So moving on, we talked about midfield, the wing backs, the defense. Let's talk about that offensive sector because there's a lot to say. And we have quite a few comments. You know what? I don't need to animate anymore. You guys are animating. So let's talk about the comments that we've received from from a lot of people on the offensive side. So go ahead, Eve, with the two offensive midfielders. We can start with Wellington at 8'10".
Jules Anthony Vilsain. Oh, sorry, that's the one I picked.
Okay,
we'll go to the other one after.
Yeah. Okay. So Jules Anthony Vilsain is good, but he's lacking cardio. The kid is worn out after 60 minutes. That's a bit harsh, in my opinion. Go ahead, Eve.
So he didn't play at all in preseason. He didn't play at all in the first match. His first minutes of the season were last week. And obviously he subbed in and he played most of the match. He did get subbed out, of course, towards the end. But he is kind of coming into this with, and like, I don't want to sit here and say like we're going to make excuses for every player who does or does
No.
not seem tired in a match. And like I think we are willing to like call it out and criticize or whatnot when things are not great. But in the case of Julien saying, for me, no, it's not fair to make this judgment right now. If in like 8 or 10 games where, you know, he's still looking a little bit weary come 60 minutes, we can definitely have that conversation. But for now, I think give it another few games and see if his stamina improves.
Yeah, exactly. And he's still young, right? He's still learning. So, you know, he's still also trying to adapt to a new style of play. So I think that's a bit harsh for now. And then we have another comment, and that's for you, Elias. Eve, Hardy, my name is Hady, no R, and Elias. With the benefit of hindsight, do you still think Bryce Duke has a spot on the starting 11 on this team? This guy, despite his talent, does not deserve to be on the starting 11, in my opinion. Elias, he had a bad game. Bryce Duke, let's say it.
Yeah,
right?
and the problem is when Montreal was focusing on more of a slower build-up, that's when you saw the finer points. But in situations like this, where almost all the offense came from, you know, quick accelerations and building out of the back quickly and then finding space, that's not what he does, right? You know, you saw it a couple times where Ruan would break down, you know, the flank, or Lasserie would break down the flank, and Kokoro and Justin be running with him, and Duke just isn't there, right? So again, I'd be more interested to see, you know, how he'd play in a game where they're going to have the majority of the ball and they have to break down a low block. I think that he'll probably be better suited to that. But in games like this, especially on the road, where there's a lot of running, there's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of not even if it's not a counterattack, it's just, you know, getting vertical somewhat quickly. It's just not his skill set. And I think with just like the cameo that Dominik Yankov had, if that's, you know, the kind of Dominik Yankov we're going to be getting.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a bit later, but I just want to talk a bit about Bryce Duke first, and then I'll let you talk, Eve. I completely agree with what you said, Elias. I'll just say it, you know, maybe a bit more bluntly. For me, Bryce Duke has his place in the starting 11 at home, but doesn't have his place in starting 11 away from home. It's as simple as that. So you said it, and that's what you said, Elias, but like differently. For me, this is what I see, because when you're gonna need a Bryce Duke when you're at home pushing for a goal at the 80th minute. You're gonna need that kind of player that's technically above your average offensive midfielder in MLS, and he's very, very good technically. So when the game is fast, when you're playing counterattacks, when you're playing in a low block, completely agree with you, Elias, because he's not at ease physically yet, and his physicality really lacks a lot, and that's why I don't think he's fit for the starting 11 in away from home. Go ahead, Eve, if you have.
No, I'm actually good. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. Now, and Robbie saying Duke's play is erratic. It feels erratic right now. It feels erratic. I agree. Moving on with, you talked a bit about Yankov, Elias, so that's a good transition from, I think it's our friend Patrick that says, where is it? Yankov with a few nice passes.
Yeah.
You know, it's a small cameo, but we did see it in the first half too. In the first game too, where he was very interesting, Yankov. In this game, he's the one that really starts the play on Sunusi's goal. So it's Chouanière that gives it to Yankov, that finds Joseph Martinez. Martinez gives the ball to Sunusi, who scores. So Yankov starts with that through ball, and that's what we need from the offensive midfielders, in my opinion, on away from home. You need those direct passes, those through balls in behind the defense. Eve, how did you like Dominik Yankov tonight?
I liked his entrance as a change of pace, especially as Montreal was getting quite overrun by Miami, of course, as they also brought on their big cannons. So I thought it was a really necessary change because, Bryce Duke, I think, was getting overwhelmed out there. He was not impacting the match whatsoever. And they needed somebody who could either hold up the ball or who could, just frustrate the opposition a little bit and give those Montreal defenders in the back part of the midfield as well some breathing room, because it was getting really exhausting, especially, as the scoreline was so tight. So I thought his entrance was a good sub, and obviously he played an important role in helping Montreal get a goal, which can't complain.
Yeah, exactly. Can't complain, as you said. It's also interesting to see how Laurent Courtois is able to manage those three positions. He can put an offensive midfielder, he can put a striker there, and it's kind of the same because they switch positions so much during the game that anybody can play that position. Like, you can put anyone you want and they're going to be able to play that position. We saw Joseph Martinez play in that offensive midfielder role tonight, but also in the last game too, and then switching up and going up front. That versatility up front, is that, in your way, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because someone that's a bit more specific in that his way of play will not find his place, and that's in that starting 11. Eve.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's really early in the season, and I can't help but wonder if Montreal at home is going to have a much different identity. Like, not like a much different identity tactically, but as far as possession of the ball, I should say as far as like the formation. But I think tactically they're going to have a much different identity than they do on the road. So I think there is going to be room for players like that to be a lot more themselves, if you will. Even though I know Laurent Courtois is all about expressing yourself on the pitch and not being afraid to make mistakes and stuff. But at the end of the day, on a road game, you do kind of have to be a lot more pragmatic in your approach, no matter what team you're visiting. And especially when you're visiting a team that's had as hot a start to the season as Miami. So in the short term, Hady, I agree with you. But in the medium to longer term, I think things may change a little.
Yeah, no, for sure. I hope that things will change, because
likewise.
we do have one thing to talk about still on that game, and it's those strikers. So Matias Kokaro and Joseph Martinez, I think, are the two players that we really need to talk about. Let's start with Kokaro. What a game for Matias Kokaro.
Wow.
You had some very, very good stuff from him. You had some very, very bad stuff from him. And then you have a goal just before he's subbed off.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about him. Elias, I'll let you start, because this guy should have finished the game with, in my opinion, at least 3 goals.
This is, I honestly think this is the kind of thing that may actually endear him to fans, is that kind of erraticness where you don't know whether he's going to miss a sitter and then pull out a great header out of nowhere. I think it's going to be one of these kinds of players.
No.
And you think?
I mean, it's on full display, right? We've already talked about how hardworking he is. We've talked about how good he is at winning fouls, at getting under people's skin. You saw him and Jordi Alba going at it. And, that side of his play we've already talked about at length, but we haven't really had the chance to talk about his finishing.
Yeah.
And I think that this kind of almost single-mindedness in terms of goal scoring will kind of lead to just the most random crap you've ever seen in your life, but in a good way. I think we're in store for a lot of these games where he has a really nice goal and then inexplicably just does something and you're like, I know you're good. I just saw you be good. What are you doing? And I, for one, can't wait for it.
I'm not sure I agree. Maybe because it's a small sample size. I feel that, I'm not going to say he lacked confidence, but I feel that usually scoring your first goal is very important. So I don't want to judge right now because he didn't score his first goal yet. So sometimes you tend to overthink because he didn't really score the first goal. And with all the pressure that he's had on his shoulder when he signed in, being, the next striker, the next big thing and everything, I feel that he, on those 2 chances that he missed, it was really clearly overthinking, in my opinion. So let's try and see after scoring his first goal if it's going to unlock for him, and if we're going to see more of that from him before making a judgment. That's my opinion, but I might be completely wrong, and you might be completely right, Elias. Eve, what do you think about Kokero?
Well, I guess I won't get over my trauma of Montreal strikers from the 2016 and on eras. I will say, like, a lot of information that came out on him in the preseason, was not necessarily about his finishing, even though I think we in Montreal maybe just wanted to cling to that really badly. And it was like the other qualities that you had mentioned, Hady, about, kind of winning a foul, getting under the other team's skin, and so on and so forth. And definitely, having lived through kind of what we lived through the past several years with the bevy of strikers who have tried and unfortunately failed here in Montreal, I always get a little bit of a niggling worries start to creep in when I see a striker who's billed as Montreal starting striker miss opportunities like that, but hoping obviously that scoring the header on the free kick is going to kind of jumpstart, if you will, his goal scoring form here in Montreal. Because as I have said for years now, I think years, we're desperate. We're desperate for a striker. We're desperate for a guy who can reliably put the ball in the back of the net. So please, I guess that's the beginning and the end of my sentence.
Please will be the end of your sentence.
I beg.
Great.
Please.
Elias, anything else to add on Matias Kokero? Moving on Joseph Martinez. A lot of people, and I'm reading a lot of things on Twitter, X, of people saying, why doesn't he start? And yada yada, saying, he's the best striker that we have, and everything. He's clearly not ready to start. He played 45 minutes today, and I think it was maybe 10 minutes more than what he was able to give. And we even saw it on the goal, because he's completely free and through. And if he was ready, if he was fitness ready, he would have been one-on-one in front of Calendar, but he's not. So he gave it to Sunusi, who found the back of the net. Do you guys agree with that, or do you think that I'm being a bit too harsh on Joseph Martinez and he should be the starter?
I think you are.
Really?
Okay, no, I'm not sure if he should be a starter. Let me go back. Sorry, if I may. I think he's an excellent super sub, 100%. It's the most luxurious super sub Montreal has had since I can remember.
Since Drogba was a super sub to Mancosu.
Awkward. Yeah, but those circumstances were a little different. And then there was the time where he wasn't the super sub, and yeah. To say that's a luxury super sub is an understatement. I think with Joseph Martinez, obviously he's working his way into fitness for this season as well, as he didn't really play in the preseason either. So, I don't know if he's going to get kind of more of those touches and, build some of that chemistry with his teammates as time goes on, and perhaps he can work his way into being a starter, because obviously he has a great scoring instinct. And you kind of pointed it out, but I saw it differently. I saw that, there was a defender nearby to close him down, but he, rather than, trying to stick a dagger in the heart of his former team, he laid the ball off for a guy who had a better scoring opportunity. And I saw that kind of as altruistic rather than,
it is.
Yeah, rather than, I kind of thought you painted it really negatively.
No, I thought that if you had an informed Joseph Martinez, you would have had a 1v1 striker versus keeper. But because you have an out of form Joseph Martinez, he wasn't able to get that acceleration going.
Yes.
So
Okay.
so unfortunately, but then he had the great reflex to really give it to a player in a better position. So because he's a very good player, but I don't think he's ready yet to be a starter.
No, I agree with you.
That was mostly my question.
Okay. Yeah.
2 more comments on Matthias Kokara that I forgot to mention, please. The first one, do you think, and that's for you, Elias, because I think you're going to see where I'm coming from. Do you think that it was Courtois' intent to ask him to play on the right so that 100%. He goes, 100%. He creates havoc into Jordi Alba's mental condition?
1,000%. Jordi Alba does not need any provocation to begin with. He will go right away. And you put someone like Matthias Kokoro next to him, 1,000% that was done on purpose. And it worked. It worked. For that entire stretch, Jordi Alba was mostly ineffective. I mean, after everything happened, I mean, he scored an incredible goal and everything like that. But, you know, you take someone like Jordi Alba off the game, that's a huge knock to a team that already, you know, didn't have Busquets on, didn't have Suarez on, didn't have Messi at all. You're neutralizing a very key player.
Yeah.
And you saw how good he was at the beginning. I think that adjustment to kind of after the fact, after he put in a couple of really good crosses to get him off his game was a really nice bit of shithousery because it worked. You know, they were at each other's throats, and you know, Jordi Alba gave him like a slap off the back of the head or something. Not enough for a red card, but it just shows that, you know, it 100% got under his skin, and I love that he did that.
Yeah, I loved it too. Honestly, I really loved it. And I saw a lot of people writing on Twitter and saying, "Oh, I don't know. What is he doing?" I'm like, yeah, he's doing the right thing, man. Exactly. He's doing the right thing.
Can you imagine this during like against TFC? It's going to be incredible.
Oh, man.
He's going to draw 78 fouls. It's gonna
you know what I would have loved to see? Matthias Kokara with Michael Bradley, but that's not going to happen, unfortunately. But that would have been a great story. And last but not least, we do have a comment from Tan that sent it to us before the show, and his comment was, Kokaro looking like our version of Darwin Núñez.
That's kind of an accurate comparison, actually.
We'll miss an absolute sitter and then beautiful goal. No context, no further context needed.
With the Uruguayan Grinta also, right? So because they're both Uruguayan, right?
So it's perfect. It's perfect.
It's really perfect. Love the comment. Good one. Good one on you, Than. Let's close this up with comments on the game, like general comments from everybody, from all our listeners, and you're a lot today, guys, so thanks a lot for being here. So first of all, we have Jean-François Coté that says, "Good evening, I'm so happy it wasn't one of the many nights where we dropped points on the road after a tough battle and leading, and it came so close to being that."
What's the worst lead in sports?
Exactly. Then we have Patrick that says, "Good evening, ladies and gents. Big win again." And one thing that I want to repeat is what Patrick said at the beginning of the season. When we asked on here on The Ball Is Round, we asked a question to all our listeners. What do you guys think would be, how many points should we have to consider it as a good start of the season in the first 6 games? And what Patrick had said, if I remember correctly, 5 points is good, 6 points is great, 7 points, plan the parade. Right. And now he's saying it again, 7 points, plan the parade, good one. And then, of course, Robbie, that's on the dark side with Eve, says no parade yet. So, you know. And then we have Tate saying, what a gritty, gutty win. And I love that because it's really the way to describe that game, in my opinion. Guys, any other comments on that game? Like general comments? How do you describe that win in a way, or nothing else to add?
All I can say is I think you know, the fact that it's Montreal that handed Miami their first loss of the season, like across all competitions. I'm hoping there's a part of me that's like, obviously very thrilled for Montreal, but then there's a part of me that thinks like, oh no, other teams are gonna like wake up and smell the coffee, and all of a sudden, once again Montreal was not taken very seriously going into this season, and I would imagine most people are going to look at this and say, well, Messi was on the bench, Busquets was Messi wasn't there at all. Busquets was on the bench, Suarez was on the bench, so they had rotated their squad quite intense. And so even if we take it with a grain of salt, I do feel like people are going to look at this win and all of a sudden like might get a little too hype. And the hype train might accidentally like kick up to warp speed. And I think we're still a little bit early in the season to say that Montreal are truly confirming themselves. So as your resident pessimist, I'm just here to say like, let's get a larger sample size, everyone. Let's see how they do at home. Although this is an awesome win, and of course, Montreal fans should be really happy about it.
Exactly.
Speak for yourself, man. Ça sent la coupe.
Ça sent la coupe. Yeah, exactly.
I do not endorse this statement.
Before we do have quite a few questions that were sent to us before the show. We have another question that just came in right now. Where is Saliba, from Michael? I did a small, I did my own investigation. I talked to a few people, and they told me that he got an injury during the preseason, and he's not 100% fit yet. So that's why you're not seeing Nathan Saliba. From what I understand, as per my own sources, I don't like to say sources, but whatever, it's not like he's not about to be transferred or anything. It's not a dispute with the club or anything. It's just that he's not 100% fit right now to play. So, that's another player talking about depth and about options that Laurent Courtois has. That's another player also that we haven't seen this season yet, which is really, really interesting. And even Laurent Courtois said during the presser, when he said that, congratulations to the team, he's like, and I just want to also congratulate all the players that weren't in the roster because they're doing a fantastic job too. So trying to keep everybody involved, which I think it's a very good thing from Laurent Courtois. Let's answer the questions. Let's start with the Johnny's. So Johnny Lower says, will Biello or any other academy player get a pro contract? After watching the CONCACAF U20, the best players were the ones with at least some pro minutes. And then Amin Sabri adding, same question for Schiavoni, who didn't play with the reserve Friday. Sorry, can you just put it back?
Oh, my apologies.
Because, Friday, the reserve, they played with Duty on the right as a right wing back, Iliadis on the left wing back, and Biello as a number 6, but no Schiavoni in the reserve. So, guys, who wants to start with answering that question?
I mean, it's
don't fight over this.
You know me. I'm always an advocate for youngsters getting professional playing time, be it on loan,
play the youth.
What have you? Exactly, right. I've already spoken my mind about them playing in PLSQ, Ligue 1 Quebec. There's only so much. There's a point of diminishing returns, and I think that they're getting pretty close with a lot of these young players where, they're not really developing anymore at this level. So you have to find somewhere else to send them if they're not going to sign a contract. And I think Biello, who is arguably, one of your biggest homegrown academy talents in a while, at just 17, and he's already, captaining the U17 national team. He's going with the U20 team. Looks like, from an academy perspective, the real deal. You have to start either including him in the first team properly or shopping him for a loan, because at the end of the day, him playing with the reserve team only does so much. And Mateusz, if Mateusz is still with the group, because I know because like I said, he is from the Bologna Academy. If he's in the same boat, you have to find professional opportunities for him, right? Loan him out, because you don't want him leaving permanently, like some other people have. And even if it doesn't 100% pan out and he becomes a rock star, this is still, you're still trying to develop your academy and increase the legitimacy of your academy. And you have people leaving permanently to go on their own as a free agent to other professional outlets versus you transferring them to professional outlets, you lose the credibility because you're going, we don't have a placement rate. We don't place them in these professional teams. They're leaving us and going to professional teams. So players are saying, I'm just going to skip the middleman and avoid you guys.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that they have to kind of focus on providing professional opportunities. And if you're not going to do the MLS Next Pro thing, fine. CPL and USL are 100% there. And they would love, because the more players from CF Montreal that have these really strong loan spells, and see what you will about Hady and Elias, he was decent at Atletico Ottawa. The more these teams are going to be like, yeah, we'll take your loan players because we know you're good for it. Because you have that reputation, you have that legitimacy. But if you start, twiddling your thumbs and dragging your feet about signing them there, then teams would be like, I'm not gonna wait for you for you to send me whatever. I'm gonna move on.
I completely agree with you, honestly, Biello is going to be 18 in a few days, beginning of April, if I'm not mistaken. He's going to be 18, and that's when you need to start playing at a professional level. If you want to become that team that develops players, you need to start giving them pro minutes young and very young. And if not with the CF Montreal team, elsewhere. Completely agree with you. I'm not going to repeat everything that you said, but I think I've been saying that, and we've all been saying that here on The Ball Is Round for what we've been on this show since 2019. Like we've always said that, and it's always been our way of thinking. So hopefully we'll see them get pro minutes very, very shortly. Canadian Championship, at least get some bench, like be on the bench for some games, like with CF Montreal. If you're not able to loan him, at least put him on your bench, even if you have a very big roster. That's, I think, very interesting too. Eve, anything to add on this question?
No, I think you guys covered it.
Good. Next comment, I think we have from Emil. Okay, that's a tough one. A question I've had for a while, spurred again by Amy Walsh, and we say hi to Amy Walsh, of course, mentioning TFC's performance coach, Robin Gale. Is it time for MLS to consider a gender-based Rooney rule to encourage giving opportunities and hiring women coaches, technical staff? The league claims, largely deservedly, to be successful in promoting Black and minority candidates in sporting leader positions. Does the league have a responsibility to similarly promote the hiring of women, coaches, sporting staff, and how should it proceed to do so? Eve, go ahead.
Tough question.
Very tough question.
Very tough question. I think that when your league is comprised of teams in two federations that are both trying very hard to bring equity about with different levels of success, I do think that it's important to consider women candidates as well. I think it is, there are all kinds of very, very talented, whether it's in the boardroom or at the executive level or at the coaching level. I think there are all kinds of talented women who could fill those roles. And I'm sure it must be a challenging environment for a woman to enter a man's space, like a men's pro team. I can't imagine doing it myself for sure. However, like, coming from my own lived experience, that is something that I would love to see. Of course, I'm always going to be a proponent of hire the most qualified candidate who would fit best with your team. But I absolutely think that there should be emphasis on having women be part of those discussions and be part of that candidate pool. 150,000%.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'll add just one thing on what you said, Eve. We do have a woman in our medical team as a massage therapist in Laurence Godin that's been here for more than 10 years. So, CF Montreal does that already. I think that we can and we should move forward with maybe a woman in the technical staff. That I think is, but you need to find the right person, right? You're not going to find any. You're not going to go get any woman just for the fact of her being a woman, right? So you need to find a very good and you do have very talented coaches in as women, and I think yes, they should be promoted whenever we have a chance of promoting them, for sure, 100%. Elias, anything to add?
You guys hit the nail on the head. There's plenty of qualified women in every capacity for the club. So
yeah, exactly. Moving on, last question that we had is from Roberto Tiranardi. That should be here still. If CF Montreal beats Miami tonight with the Miami Stars playing at least part of the game or more, it means, you know what? I'll give it to Eve because you're both on the same wavelength usually. So,
okay. I feel like I said a little bit earlier. I think like a lot of people, maybe who don't pay quite as close attention, are going to take Montreal a lot more seriously than they were at the start of the season. And I do think it's way early to do that in Laurent Courtois' tenure. So,
but complete the sentence, Eve.
So I think it's going to, unfortunately, give some folks a little bit unrealistic expectations that are undoubtedly going to be tempered in the coming weeks. And hopefully it's not too harsh of a come down. But that being said, what I hope it means is that everyone who's listening to us tonight has a really enjoyable Sunday night.
Oh,
very diplomatic. That was very diplomatic.
Oh man, diplomatic. Debbie
Downer. I'm the diplomatic.
Debbie Downer.
You asked for your resident pessimist to answer a question. I'm sorry.
If you're the diplomatic one, I'm going to be pessimistic then.
Go ahead. Go. Complete the sentence then.
It means that
you got 3 points.
You don't know how to be pessimistic, right?
Okay, it means they got 3 points, period. The end of the
sentence. At least part of the game, but like Suarez played like 10 minutes, Busquets played like 15 minutes, and Alba was great, but I wouldn't say the Stars played, so, and Messi wasn't even there, so I don't really know if that counts.
Okay. I would complete in a pessimistic way. If CF Montreal beats Miami tonight with the Miami Stars playing at least part of the game or more, it means we were lucky. And we weren't.
That was very
good. So yeah, we tried playing your game, Eve. It's tough. I don't know how to do it, so it's tough.
Okay, guys. One episode at a time. I'll try to bring you over to the dark side.
Good, guys. So I think there's one thing that I wanted to show you. I saw that tweet and I'm like, if we have time, we're gonna go over it. The MLS Communication said through his first 3 away games, CF Montreal head coach Laurent Courtois has won the most points in a first-year MLS head coach first 3 away games since Phil Neville in 2021. And I love the face you're doing, Eve, because that's exactly what I did. I was like, wow, that's so good. That's so nice. And then I saw since Phil Neville, and I'm like, oh man, what did you do?
To be fair, since 2021, it's been 3 years.
Exactly.
It's not an achievement.
But not only that, Phil Neville, man.
Yeah.
But
even a broken clock is right twice a day. That's.
But he's doing very well in Portland right now.
He is.
Portland also has a really solid team.
They do. Lots of Canadian content on that team.
Yeah, Portlandia, baby. Exactly. It's not just the Thorns.
Portlandia.
And yeah, but also it's like it's been 3 years. I don't think that's too crazy. Like there was another stat that they dropped. Like this is the best start to a CF Montreal season since they were 3-0 in like 2013. I'm like, it's been 3 games.
Yeah.
This is not the start is not even finished yet. Relax.
I know. Your president pessimist was not here for it.
Good. So that's going to wrap up our CF Montreal talk for the night. It's time to turn the page and to talk about the Canadian women's national team.
Oh, God.
If we can call it game against the U.S. in the semifinal in the W Gold Cup. A game that we were really waiting for. We talked about it last week. We were very excited. I had very high expectations, to be honest. Um, and then we played a game on a pitch that was a swimming pool, really a swimming pool. How can we explain that to the world that that game happened, Eve?
Honestly, I'm shocked. I'm dismayed. I really don't have words. Like it's really funny because of course International Women's Day was just this past Friday. And of course that's the time that so many, teams, so many nations, so many different companies and organizations take a minute to say we appreciate women and we're here for you, like, we want to make things more equitable and so on and so forth. And then this nonsense happens. And it's funny because actually it's just ironic. I think it was really 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 disappointing, really disconcerting, and it's even worse because we saw just last night the match in Philadelphia in MLS got postponed. They did try to play a few minutes, but wound up deciding to postpone the match. I have no idea who made that decision to play on that pitch. It was dangerous. It was unfit. The match was unwatchable for any spectators who bothered to show up in the torrential conditions. But first and foremost, there's been so much discussion about safety in the women's game, largely from like just a general handling of injury standpoint. But this also brings back the fact that it really doesn't feel like safety is taken into account in the women's game the same way it is in the men's. And I'm painting it with a little bit of a broad brush, and I'm really sorry for that. But it hurt, honestly, to see that they were forced to play in those conditions, because it was not a worthy occasion of the rivalry that is Canada versus the US.
Yeah, and I just want to add, usually and officially, the decision to play a game or not goes to the referee, the central referee. So, yes, I'm pretty sure that the central referee has a bit of pressure from here and there from the CONCACAF and everybody. But at the end of the day, she's the one that took the decision to play that game. Elias, pretty sure you talked about that with your brother. That's Rev. What did he have to say about that?
Oh, he agreed. You can't disagree with that, right? That's not a playable field, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, but like it's the
It was
decision of
funny
the
for
central
about
referee.
that.
Why did she
We
accept it?
still haven't gotten any justification as to why. It stopped being funny after 5 minutes. It was funny for a bit, right? They're falling all over the place. The ball's going 2 feet at best, and yeah, that's funny. But at the end of the day, right, we're like just in the last year, there's like knee injury after knee injury after knee injury, and there's like it's not just a knock. These are
Like
career
ACLs.
threatening, and you miss a year of your career to these injuries, and you're just gonna play on a field like this. Like this is, and the problem is that like the ref was so, I don't know, it looked like she was frazzled because the entire game was poorly officiated, and the entire game was just a mess, right? And like, field notwithstanding, she did not seem to be in control of the game whatsoever. And did that lead to the no call on the Jesse Fleming penalty? Maybe, but at the end of the day, there's so much that went wrong with this, and it was a very very upsetting reminder that like, yes, the women's game has been elevated very very rapidly in the last like 3-4 years, but there's still so much that's left to be done. And the gap between how the women's game is treated and how the men's game is treated is still so big that you have a continental semifinal that's playing these conditions, but like a regular season game is immediately rained out in the same country. Like it's literally it's like, yeah, it's far away in the other side of the country, but it's in the same country, right? So yeah, I think that I'd like to see a statement from somebody officially addressing this. Will we get one? I doubt it.
We never do.
But
We never do.
No.
somebody needs to be held accountable for this. And this isn't even like, the salty Canada fan that, you know, very, very, like, they very well could have won this game if
We'll
that
talk. We'll talk about the game a bit later,
the game
Elias.
itself.
Yeah, yeah.
This isn't just the salty Canada fan in me.
Mhm.
That's because there's no reason that this should have been the way it played out. This was one of my most anticipated Canada US games in a long time.
Yeah.
And I feel cheated personally. And I know the players, even the Americans who won this game, I know they absolutely feel cheated by this.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And you know what? I'll add something to your comments, both of you. We said it at one point. I think it was last year. Yeah, last year on the Ball is Round, and we talked about the competitions in women's soccer, the international competitions in women's soccer, and apart from the World Cup, which is completely different, the great tournament international tournament there is right now in the world is the Euro,
Mhm.
and the W Gold Cup was supposed to be the kind of tournament that would compete with the Euros because of the type of opponents that you would get. You would get, teams from Central America, teams from North America, and teams from South America, and sometimes you would have guests from Europe maybe. And for us, that was supposed to be a spotlight for the whole region
Yeah.
in women's soccer. And for me, it's a missed opportunity because that spotlight right now is completely tainted. Is completely we're a joke. We're a joke
Again.
again. Exactly again, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now let's talk about that game because we said everything that we needed to say on this, and there was a game that was played. For the
If
people
you can
that
call
missed
it
it,
that.
yeah.
Technically, yes.
For the people
Technically
that missed
soccer.
it, the game finished 2-2, with and then a loss 3-1 on
Yeah.
3-1 on penalties for the US, which was very very tough on both teams
Yeah.
because both teams weren't able to play their game, and it was not a very interesting game like on the pitch. Yes, emotionally it was interesting because you had the drama, you had everything that
Mhm.
comes with a game, but it was tainted by non-football things like we're gonna play a long ball because we know it's gonna be stopped by the rain.
Yeah.
We're gonna and the whole game plan of both coaches changed. So let's see the game plan of Beth Priestman and her starting 11. You can go ahead, Eve, with the starting 11.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the starting 11 was obviously Jessie Fleming was captain. Then we had Caitlin Sheridan in goal. Our three center backs were Kadisha Buchanan, Vanessa Gilles, and Jade Rose. Then we had Ashley Lawrence at right wing back, and Gabrielle Carl at left wing back. Along with Jessie Fleming, the captain, we had Simi Awujo in probably the biggest start of her young career. Along with them, and then leading kind of the front of the line, we had Deanne Rose, Adrienne Leon, and Chloe Lacasse.
Yeah. When I first saw the starting 11, my opinion was, okay, Bev made that starting 11 not realizing what kind of pitch
Seriously.
she's gonna have.
Yeah.
Because you have some very mobile and very pacey players with Deanne Rose, with Chloe Lacasse, and on that pitch, pace is
You
not.
can't dribble to save your life.
You can't dribble. You can't play. You can't play through balls. You can't.
You can't do a quick give and go.
It's tough. So maybe if I would have gone with a more physical starting 11, even if in the midfield you did have Simi Awujo, which I was very happy about. What was your thoughts on that starting 11, Elias? Let's start with you.
I mean, at the end of the day, I wasn't too mad at it because I did think
No,
that
not
this
mad.
was the best 11 of the tournament.
Really? Deanne
And
Rose? Now, Olivia Smith had a concussion, so
Yeah.
it couldn't be
yeah,
her.
exactly, right. But ultimately, I think just in terms of, if you're playing the US, you're playing against lots of pace and power, lots of energy. Technically, they're very strong, but the best asset that the Americans have is their athleticism, right? They're quick, they're strong,
Yeah.
very assertive, and ultimately, um, I feel like Bev Priestman lined up to kind of counter that with a bit more finesse, which I liked. And yeah, hindsight is 2020. You see the field, and I don't think anyone expected the field to play that poorly. But at the end of the day, you start the game, you can't change your lineup. And look, that pass from Vanessa doesn't get caught up, then it's an entirely different story, right? But I think as a lineup, I wouldn't have really changed much going into that game.
Eve, any comments on the 11, or do I go with another question?
No, I just wanted to say I also loved Simia Wujo being included. I thought it was a very bold choice from Bev Priestman because I fully expected to see a more conservative starting 11, including Quinn out there. Because Simia Wujo is obviously, I think she's got a lot of creativity in her boots. That was obviously wasted on that waterlogged pitch. She definitely has the energy to keep up with a game that was probably meant to go back and forth a lot. And so I really liked the choice. Unfortunately, the conditions just were not there for her.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that the physicality of Simia Wujo gave her the start also, which I think is very interesting. I think we should have gone with a bit more, physical players up front, but in the midfield, I think that was the right choice. Even if Quinn, they're really good, but for that matchup, I prefer a player like Simia Wujo to a player like Quinn. So very interesting. Also, I wanted to note that Julia Grosso had an injury too, so that's why we didn't see her play
very much
a lot during the tournament. So just wanted to put it out there. Now, let's talk about that first goal for the US. Okay, that pass for Vanessa Gilles on the floor to Kaylin Sheridan on a waterlogged pitch. Not a great decision.
No.
And also, I think that if you look at the whole squad, we all know how Vanessa Gilles is amazing. Okay, I'm not saying she's not. She's so important for the team. But if you look at the players, if you rank them as technical players, Vanessa Gilles is the last player technically.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't played soccer for too long, right? Don't forget that it's someone that started soccer at 16. So and it shows when her decision making when she has the ball. They're usually very simple, which is very, very good. But on a waterlogged pitch, that showed her limitations technically showed, in my opinion, because when you have a waterlogged pitch, you should know that you can't play that kind of pass, that you need to play it in the air a bit more. You need to play a more risky pass in a way. So Eve, how bad was this for Canada to really get scored on that early in the game, and that in that specific way too?
Yeah, it was really, really, really disappointing for sure. Obviously, they were having a lot of trouble coming to grips with the conditions. And that certainly didn't make anything easier because now they had a hole to climb back out of, and it really didn't seem like they had an idea as to how they were going to get themselves some interesting scoring opportunities. Obviously, it took them, I think, longer than the US to kind of just figure out that it was route one or die, basically. So, yeah, it was definitely not what they needed, to say the least.
Exactly. And then we saw that right away because that goal was scored early in the game. I thought that I had the minutes here, but I don't have them. But
It was around like the 21st minute or so, I think.
exactly. So very early in the game. And, Elias, when you play against the favorite already a goal down after 20 minutes, that gets to you mentally, right? Like it's tough to regain, possession of your thoughts and also to come back from this when you are clearly the underdog in that game, right?
Yeah, but I don't really think that Canada let it get to them that much,
Interesting.
Um, in the way that they responded. I think that, you know, I agree with Eve that it took them way too long to figure out that it's just like almost like hockey where you just dump and chase and then just try and keep them there. But I think in terms of a response, they didn't just like let their heads drop and go like, okay, well now we're playing down a goal in this shit field and I want to die, right? So they really did take it to them, and at least in terms of the physicality, in terms of matching their energy, I think that's one of my favorite things about Jessie Fleming is that she grabbed everybody almost by the scruff of the neck and lifted them up and said, "All right, let's get one back now." And she led by example. This might be one of my favorite Jessie Fleming games, just because of
Oh
the
wow.
setting and everything going around, and the fact that she led this team, penalty notwithstanding, the fact that for at least for the 120 minutes, this might be one of my favorite Jessie Fleming games with an national team I've ever seen because she was a leader. We talked about this about a bit during the Christine Sinclair goodbye tour about who's going to pick up the mantle of the
Yeah.
representative of women's soccer in this country. And games like this and performances like that are what's going to define, who's going to fly this flag. And Jessie Fleming was every bit the leader that was needed, especially after that goal, but into the later stages of the game when they started to finally push forward and create some offense, she was right there. So I think that's why it was one of my favorite performances from her. And that's why I think that, Canada did have a decent response to the goal because they didn't have much going on after that.
Yeah, they did try to build a bit more, but it wasn't very. We didn't have clear cut chances, or not a lot of clear cut chances. We had a few, but not
Mhm.
really like great
Proper,
and
no.
proper chances in a
Yeah.
way. Uh, until that goal, we were. Um, let me correct myself. I was very, very tough on Jordan Heidema in the quarterfinals about what she was able to bring to Canada against Costa Rica. That goal that she scored
Mhm.
was amazing. That's the kind of goals that we want to see from Jordan Heidema. And she
Mhm.
played it to the perfection at the 82nd minute when we needed her the most.
Yeah.
She showed up. She played that target woman up front. She played that role beautifully and scored a wonderful header. Eve,
Yeah.
how did you rate her performance, Jordan Heidema?
So she came in as a sub, and I think she was more effective for it. I'm sure that did make things easier on her as well, because of course that gave her time to observe the pitch and observe the challenges that came with playing in the conditions that they played in. I like her as a sub, I think, better than a starter, because we've seen a kind of a mix of those performances from her. And obviously, we've seen some other players have more starts in the striker role as well recently. And like even just a little bit prior to this tournament, and along with this tournament, I think we got to see a bit more of a shakeup in Bev Priestman's typical attacking formation. And I rather like her as a sub, honestly.
I like that.
So yeah,
Yeah, I
you can
agree
get
with
behind that. Yeah.
I'm behind that. I'm behind
Okay.
that. 100%. I feel she should be the super sub, but who's
Hmm.
going to be the starter? Are we going
All in.
along with all in with Evelyn Vian being the starter?
Olivia Smith, if she has a swift recovery from her concussion. Obviously, we have players like Adriana Leon, who could also start in that position as well. Really, most of the front line could play in the starting striker role as well. Most of anybody who kind of plays in that front three. So there are a lot of options, honestly, available. Evelyn Vien is somebody who I would like to, though I don't think like she had necessarily the tournament of her life this time.
Yeah, but I think she needs to start to be good. She needs those starts. Like, she's a poacher. Like, for me, she needs to feel the game. She needs to be on the pitch for an amount of time before being regularly decisive. Right now, she's never had a chance as a starter. Yeah. When are you going to give her a chance? I don't know. Exactly. That's a great answer, Elias. So let's talk about this. So, in your opinion, we should have a different starting 11 at the She Believes Cup?
Yes, but only for the reason that you have so much talent that it would hurt to not try it, right?
Especially now that you lost Richelle Prince.
Exactly. Like you took. I still saw the Gold Cup as a preparation tournament for the Olympics. I still think the Olympics is the bigger fish that needs to be perfect. Ultimately, the Gold Cup is obviously important. It is your continental competition, but for me, the big fish is the Olympics. That is, you are defending champions. That is what you have to be ready for. So if they would have tried, if Bev Priest would have tried stuff and works or doesn't work, I would have been all right. She Believes Cup now is when you have to really get into your mad scientist outfit and just try anything. Right? If she really took it like preseason friendly, where I'm just like I'm giving everybody like halves and just changing stuff, I'm not even mad at that.
But she said it from the beginning that the W Gold Cup is a preparation for the Olympics. That was
but it wasn't coached like that, right? It was coached like a proper tournament.
Yeah,
she didn't really try much that was different, especially in some of the bigger games, right? Because you try some difference against a team that you're already that you're going to beat 7-0. It's not really much of a right. Try something different against Costa Rica, then I'm more interested. Try something different against the US. That would have been nice, but obviously.
But you tried. She tried Simia Woodrow.
Yes, but Simia Woodrow's already playing so well that's not.
Yeah, but still.
But no, for Bev Priestman,
that's just a reinforcement of how well she's doing.
Right? Yeah, but Bev Priestman, I think, has been very, very rigid with her starting 11s for most of her tenure, I would say. So for me to see a young up and coming player who is still playing in college, like she's not gone pro. For me, that was a bold statement from Bev Priestman, like on the Bev Priestman scale, if you will.
Yeah, I think Adriana Leon kind of gave her tenure in the national team new life with this tournament.
Very much.
Because a lot of people, including myself, were kind of starting to question where she stands in this group, and then she had the tournament of her life. So you know what, I do think that this kind of rejuvenated her claim. But at the end of the day, you have Evelyn Vien, you have Olivia Smith, you have attacker, even Chloe Lacasse as a second striker can play in that capacity. There's people kind of breathing down her neck, and the She Believes Cup, I want to see different layouts. I don't want to see a 3-4-3 for every single game, and the usual suspects. If you want to play 3-back because your center back is also, the back like Buchanan and Gilles, we know how good they are, but Rose was tasked with marking Trinity Rodman, which is a nightmare assignment, and she was amazing the entire game.
Yeah, Jade Rose is really, really interesting. I know it's one of my
a bit of
favorites.
A bit of an outside point. I just wanted that to be on the record. She was amazing because Trinity Rodman is a nightmare, even with a waterlogged pitch. But I want to see, a 2 striker and a 10. I want to see 2 strikers and 3 midfielders. I want to see different layouts because there's so much talent right now that you're doing yourself a disservice by shoehorning everybody into a 3-4-3.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I think it's too late to try something else, in my
For
opinion,
the Sheep
because
League, I think there's still time for the Sheep League
but
Cup.
you have what 3 games in a She Believes
Yeah.
Cup. You're gonna build
Yeah.
a new tactical formation in only 3 games before the biggest competition
Tournament
of the
that's
year.
yeah.
If it works,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Okay, Elias.
I
Yeah,
don't
if it
know.
works,
The
go for it.
sample size is too small, in my opinion. So
No,
I
but
think
not given the quality of the teams you're playing against, right? If it's teams you beat up 7-0, then yeah, it's not. But you're playing against proper
I
teams,
think
right?
that should have been tried last year. It had to be started, in the
I agree with Hady
farewell
on
thing
this
with.
one.
Wow, Eve agrees with me. You know what? When Eve agrees with me, that means that I'm right.
Especially
Of course,
on
I did want them
the
to do
topic
that
of
last
women's
year.
soccer.
No, on all topics.
I did
So
want them to do that for the last Sheep
That's the
League
right
Cup, and it
answer,
didn't
Hady.
happen. But I still want them to do it now.
I don't know.
Adapt or die, you know?
We'll see. We'll see. Let's talk about 2 points
Okay.
still on the Canadian women's national team. Then we'll do social media before wrapping up. So one player that, in my opinion, deserved to play was Shalina Zadorsky. She's been so good for Canada in the last game of the group stage against Costa Rica, scoring 2 goals.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't play much. I think she played a few minutes against Costa Rica in the quarterfinals. Do you guys agree with me that she should have started that game? Because on a waterlogged pitch,
Mm-hmm.
set pieces are that much more important.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a player that's so lethal, on corners and set pieces, I think you should use that weapon. Yes, you have Vanessa Gilles, but having Gilles and Zadorsky, I think, would have made a lot of sense. Even if, yes, Jade Rose was great on Rodman, I don't know. I feel that it's a missed opportunity.
I mean, we also saw Kadisha Buchanan. We know Vanessa Gilles can score on a set piece. So a part of me wonders, if Bev Priestman kind of thought that definitely with Vanessa Gilles there for set piece coverage, and as well having seen Kadisha Buchanan also score this tournament, although not a brace, that she kind of had her bases covered on that front. Shalina Zadorsky, she's had I think a lot of really up and down times with her career, kind of the past year and a half. She's spent a lot of time away from the pitch. Then when she was healthy again, she kind of struggled to find her way back into her squad. She recently switched teams in the winter. So I feel like she's had a lot of tumult. And maybe just lacking some of that consistency that other players have brought in, even at the NCAA level, which is where Jade Rose currently plays.
Yeah, and has she been playing with West Ham? I think she's been playing.
She has been getting more consistent minutes with West Ham
since January. So we can't really say that she's been lacking minutes, because she is playing with West Ham, and it's been 3 months now. So. But I kind of see your point. It's just that for me, because she's been playing and getting minutes with West Ham, and because of what she showed, a bit like Simi Owujo that got her chance, I think she should have had her chance. But
I think she's played 3 matches with West Ham.
Yeah. Okay. Out of how many games that
she could have played?
Yeah, she could have played 5, 6. Yeah, 5 or 6.
Yeah, because they start a little bit later after the holidays.
Exactly.
So I would say maybe 5 or 6.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Good. So last question, but not least, Elias, we saw the penalties for Canada against the US. We can blame it on the pitch, yes, but so many bad penalties. And the worst of it all is that Beth Priestman said that they trained on penalties. How can you explain? Yeah. How can you explain those penalties? Because This was very,
can't.
very bad because
You are
Adriana Leon, Jordan Heidema, and Jesse Fleming shot the exact same penalty, the exact same bad penalty on Nair every time. The only one that had a decent penalty was Quinn, and he had a wonderful penalty. How can you explain that, Elias?
I
Because
can't.
okay,
You
one
are
bad penalty I
professional soccer
understand.
players. You're professional soccer players.
You just scored a penalty like 5 minutes ago.
5 seconds ago. What am I looking at? What? No, I thought I was getting pranked. I legitimately thought this wasn't real because, first of all,
They
like
got
one
paid.
bad
They got
penalty,
paid.
one bad penalty, I will excuse. 2 bad penalties is weird. 3 in the same spot.
The same exact
Same
spot.
So I just thought, and the worst part is like, I don't know why this is a theme because I see this all the time in every single national team tournament where people just drop the worst penalty performances I've ever seen in my life. Men's tournaments and women's tournaments. The World Cup had some mind-bogglingly horrible penalties. The Women's World Cup had some terrible ones. The Men's World Cup in Qatar, don't give me that those are some of the worst penalties. I don't know why. I don't know what happened in Qatar, but Qatar had the worst penalties I've ever seen in my life. And I don't, maybe the goalies are getting better at it, but the placement and some of the technique on some of these penalties is atrocious. I don't know what is this trend the last few years with national team players sucking at penalties, but this was just another chapter in it because just pass the ball to the corner. Like, do it fast, but just pass the ball to the corner. And you can't save it.
Angry Elias.
No, but you know what? He's right.
You know that
He's
Homelander
right.
clip where he's like watching a film and just like there's like a very high pitched noise and he's just like numb?
Yes.
That was me watching that entire penalty shootout. I was like,
Oh no.
there's no way what I'm watching is really happening because Evelyn Vienne did not get decapitated for you guys to put these penalties up. I felt worse. I felt so bad for her because she put her life on the line to win that penalty, to send them to extra time. And that's how they think. And I was so disappointed. It was
very disappointing. It was very disappointing. And
I thought I'd process all of it on Wednesday, but apparently I didn't.
I think it was even more disappointing for us that we're up at what 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
During the week, knowing that we had to work the next day.
Yeah.
That was tough. Was tough. And you know what? I was so pissed off and I was so tired that I didn't go to the presser. So I apologize to everyone, but I didn't go to the presser. I'm like, I'm not going to stay here and wait for half an hour for Beth Friesland to show up at the presser and then sleep at 2 a.m. Not going to happen after that game, after those penalties. So I don't know. Eve, last question for you. What do we need to do for the She Believes Cup? What should be the plan for the She Believes Cup?
So, I do think that there were good things that came out of this tournament to build off of, like, the growth of Samia Wujo, Olivia Smith, obviously, like, dominating here in the brief moment that she had. What else? I think that Bev Priestman did demonstrate a little bit more flexibility than what we had seen in the past. And I would like to see her lean a little bit more into that. While that is the last major opportunity Canada is going to have before the Olympics, I would like to see her be a little bit more willing, especially because at the Olympics, the games are going to come thick and fast, and you have such a small squad to work with that you are going to need to do a lot more rotation. So I'm hoping to see some of those players who did make a legitimate impact for Canada at this tournament get more meaningful minutes. Assuming that, of course, that they're fit and healthy, as well as some of those younger players like Jade Rose, sorry, Tishlina Zadorsky, who are starting to cement themselves as truly being part of the future of this Canadian lineup.
Interesting. By the way, it's only 2 games that they'll play at the She Believes Cup. They started the semifinals If they win, they go to the finals. If they lose, they go to the third place. So 2 games only for the She Believes Cup. So again,
It's so
very
weird.
small sample size to try new things, Elias. Sorry, in my opinion. Right now, the final, the W Gold Cup final is being played. US is winning 1-0 in front of Brazil. We're at the 75th minute, so just an FYI for everybody that's watching. Moving on, I think, to social media. Go ahead, Elias. We can go through it. We don't
Okay.
have very
Ready?
big discussions. So go ahead with the segment.
Oh, sorry. I just jumped into the tweets. My bad.
It's all right. Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's too late.
This is building on national team discourse raised from Oliver Platt. I guess it's a good thing that this is difficult. Talking about squad selection, would be very surprised to see Priestman leave behind any of the 14 I've got as locks. Add Collins if she's fit. From there, I think you're picking only one wingback, if not Collins, one central midfielder, and 2 attacking players. So the people he has as locks are Sheridan, D'Angelo, Buchanan, Gilles, Rose, Zadorsky, Lawrence, Becky, Fleming, Quinn, Leon, Lacasse, Heidema, and Prince. In contention or on the bubble, you have Riviere, Carl, Collins, if fit, Wujo, Grosso, Scott, if fit, Smith, Alidou, Rose, and Vien. What do you think about the players' locks? What do you think about the players in contention? Is the squad selection almost like a foregone conclusion at this point with how many good players there are?
I don't disagree with the locks aside from Prince, because obviously we don't necessarily know how long she's going to be injured for and what her rehab period is going to look like. But for the other players that Oliver Platt put in as a lock, I totally agree with them.
The only thing that I would disagree on is Becky, in case she doesn't play the She Believes Cup. If she plays in the She Believes Cup, yes, she's a lock. If she doesn't, then I'm not really sure you want to take someone directly from nothing, just put her in the 18 of the Olympics. But I completely agree with what Yves said. Also, Prince for me is not going to be there because she's still injured, so I don't think she will be chosen. But if we have to choose the 4, in my opinion, I don't think Riviere will be fit, so I would take Carl, Awujo.
Probably Grosso.
No, Carl, Awujo, Smith, and Vien.
That's a lot of attackers. That's a lot of attackers.
No,
you
even said 2 attackers. You said 2, so I chose 2.
I know, but if we're operating under the assumption that Michelle Prince isn't going to be there because she won't have as much time fit.
Yeah. So I need to choose a 3rd one then.
I don't know. I just think any world where Evelyne Viens isn't a lock is kind of lunacy, given how good she's been.
I think we're like the conductors of the hype train here.
Yeah,
but it's not even a hype train. She's so good at Roma, and when given the chance, she's been very, very reliable for Canada. And I think that it's just she needs more time. Yeah. But
well, she's got to make do with what she's got.
Yeah, exactly. Let's wait and see. I think we gave our thoughts. I think we'll all agree on those selections. So moving on with the second tweet.
Yes, this is from Amin about the game today. Amin Sabri. I loved Edwards' entry today. He played with Vice, always at the limit of legality, and won several important duels. He has matured a lot since his time with CF Montreal, especially defensively. It's a translation from French. Sorry. No. With Edwards and Lassiter, we are in good hands on the left flank. If I told you guys that if I showed you this 4 years ago and said, this is Raheem the Dream now, this is the Raheem the Dream we're going to get back in a couple years, what would your reaction be?
It's a blow up.
No, I wouldn't believe it. But you know what? I agree with what Amin said. I think we lacked Vice with Vilsan and Duke up front. And we needed to have at least some players that would show this kind of tenacity on the pitch. And yes, Lassiter and Edwards showed it. Rouen also can show it from time to time, as we all know. So I like that. I agree with what that means. That.
Right on.
Yeah. We can move on
Excellent.
with the third one.
Absolutely. Yes, this is from
Yeah.
how many ranks am swinging in the power rankings are CF Montreal dropping this week? MLS. How much of these first 3 games do you think are sustainable, and how much of it is just hype and taking advantage of the Champions League hangover, and how much of it is this is the real deal?
It's tough to say.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
It's tough to say. Honestly, for me, it's points won. And that's all that matters. Because when you look at last season, we missed the playoffs by 1 point. And I think the first 4 or 5 road games, we had 0 points. Right now, in 3 games, we had 7. That's the only thing. The rest, the way we're playing, against who we're playing, that's irrelevant right now. Right now, just get points. It doesn't matter how you get them. It doesn't matter against who you get them. Just get as many points as possible right now. That's what you need.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. I'm sure when Montreal has to juggle multiple competitions like Leagues Cup and Canadian Championship later this season, we're probably going to see some bumps in the road. And kind of like Hady said, especially with travel in MLS being as hard as it is, these are basically gimme points. And we'll take all we can get.
Absolutely.
All right, next up.
The next tweet, yeah. Yes, this is from we already spoke about this one. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, move on to the next one.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is from Giuseppe Campanelli. Jonathan David in fine form with back-to-back braces as he helps Lille come back late in the game to draw Rennes 2 weeks before we find out the fate of the men's national team.
Oh, my heart is not ready.
Tobago. If you are picking ones, we know that they usually deploy 2 strikers. If you're picking 1 striker right now with all the informed players,
why
is
are you
it Jonathan David? Because I'm embracing the hypotheticals. If you're picking 1 striker, is it Jonathan David? If not, who is anywhere near him right now?
It's obviously Jonathan David. Period. End of sentence. End of story. Close the book. Good night.
Follow up. How do you get him out of his national team funk then? Because he's great for Lille. He's always been great for Lille.
And he's been great for Canada many times.
More often than not.
Yeah, he's very streaky. More
often than not.
He's so streaky.
He's
one
very
of the
streaky.
Streakiest strikers
to have ever streaked. Okay.
Yeah.
And but how do you get him out of his national team funk then? Because we know how good he can be. He can be world class on his day.
You need
get him a better coach.
High five.
Okay, let's say you guys are the coach then.
Nobody wants that. I'm just there like, guys, we're gonna lose. Sorry.
Honestly, a pessimistic Eve press conference would probably be.
Oh man, so depressing. So depressing. No, but he needs to have service.
Yeah.
And service in the right conditions. And that's the biggest problem that Canada has had in the past few years. Strikers were not getting chances and opportunities to score goals. It was very easy when they were playing against the islands, whatever island you want to pick. Mm-hmm. But when they were playing against a tough opposition, the strikers didn't have those chances to put the ball in the back of the net. And Jonathan David he's a poacher. He's a poacher. He needs to have those chances. That's all. It's as simple as that. So let's wait and see. But it's going to be very interesting. And knowing also that the Canadian national team was able to get the Netherlands for a friendly in June, which is really, really interesting. So
yeah, that is.
Can't wait to see in the Netherlands, of course. Unfortunately, not in Canada.
Well, they'll be in Euro prep, so
yeah, which I love. I love to see that. So hopefully they'll get the second game also in Europe, since they're there.
Might as well.
Maybe they can. Yeah, go ahead. Play against
Save
somebody
some
else.
money on your travels.
Take a
Exactly.
bus ride.
Take a nice Ryanair.
I don't know. No, Jonathan David will be the starter, as Yves said. No questions asked.
Yeah.
Nothing like.
Period.
It's not even close. So
All
yeah. So I think this is it for social media today. Thanks a lot, Elias, for picking out those tweets. Keep on tweeting, everybody. We're watching. We're always gonna choose the best tweets that we see and pick them and talk about them here on the show. This is it tonight for our show. I hope you guys liked it. And see you next week for episode 171 of The Ball is Round.